I mean, we'll get into this video, but all I'm saying is I really hope that Andre Arullo has a very great storyteller from Portugal. I hope he has a really good, solid, non-ambiguous contract. Why? Let's get into it. Hey everybody, this is Perch, and let's talk for a moment about what are creators owed for comics. And this is one of those where there's a moral answer, there's a legal answer, and they're different answers a lot of the time. And unfortunately, or depending on your point of view, moral answers are entirely subjective. What is quote unquote right tends to vary by the person and their points of view, and also which end of the receiving arm they tend to be on. Now, I'll say this from the offset, and it's one of my points of view of the industry. It's one that people have argued with plenty. When I did a video some time ago that seemed to really irritate a bunch of people, saying I want people in comics to make more money, including people like Vita Ayala, who I'm not enjoying Vita's New Mutants run. I didn't enjoy Children of the Atom, and I haven't thought the anthology stories were particularly good. But I still want more money in the industry. I want more money in the industry, primarily in the form of health insurance and royalties, which we're about to talk about, incentives. And I want that because more money in the industry, even if it's going to people I don't particularly care for their work, it creates a healthier industry. It creates it creates a more attractive industry. If there's more money in it, more people are going to want to join it. And if more people want to join it, then it tends to lead to better people working in it by nature of competition. This is kind of a core capitalist value and everything else, but that's just generally how I feel. If there's more money, it's more appealing, more people come in. If there's more upside and incentives, it's a better thing. A lot of people get hung up because they don't like a particular creator. And yes, if there's more money in the industry in general, it means that some people I don't personally like, either their work or their personalities. In that case, maybe it's both. But there will be people who will make more money, and I have to be okay with that because it's for the betterment of other things. But anyway, as a consumer, I can still choose to pick whatever I want. But we're talking about royalties here, and why this came up is there's an article, and I was seeing a thread with Brett Booth on this, but Joshua Dessart, who worked with Valiant and certainly does a number of other comics now and has gone on to do other things, helped create Harbinger. And there's an article story about how he initially got some payments for it when I think Paramount, when Sony took options, he got a check for, he said, approximately $20,000. He's one of the creators. And, that's a good check. That's, in fact, in these days, this industry kind of term, it's a very good check. So, but later, Paramount would go on to buy the Harbinger option from Sony, and, big money deal, $2.5 million roughly, and then there's some other aspects to it. And Dessart has not gotten any royalty from that second payment. And he's kind of rightfully wondering why. And this is one of those cases where in comics, the reasons for paying or not paying typically are not described. And I know I've heard this from many different comic creators, artists, and others who will be very thrilled to get a check, but they're not completely sure why or what the calculation was, or nobody sits down to explain the check. But you're getting money and you're so happy about it, you just cheerfully take the money. And I would say, as just general advice to any artists, in particular artists, but also writers, others listening to this right now, when you get good news, even if it's for money, it's a good idea to at least understand that money. Why did it come to you? Who delivered it? What was it calculated on? These are all important things because invariably when things go bad down the road, you don't get paid for something you think you should have, or somebody skips out on it, you have some background knowledge about what was going on. It's just this good business advice. Too many creators are just so happy to get a check. They're like, thank you, and they cash it and they're done. I think there's also this built-in fear that if they ask questions, somehow the money might go away, but that's also not how checks work. Once they've given you the money, you can cheerfully cash it, put it in your account, and then dig into it a little bit. Just ask. It's not a bad thing to ask. Anyway, the contract language that kind of came out states this, and this is where we get into morally versus contractual on royalties. So a contract states that payments, i.e. royalties, shall be allocated to talent, if appropriate, by Valiant, in this case, but many companies use the exact same language. It's a very common term, what I'm about to read you. It allocated to talent, if appropriate, by Valiant at the sole, absolute, and unfettered discretion. And that determination over what is eligible for payment is made in Valiant's sole, absolute, and unfettered discretion. Now, what does that mean? Basically means it can choose to pay you or not, based on their whim, and they don't even have to explain why they're making they have to say that they're making the decision they're making. That's probably the one legal clause in here, but they don't have to explain why. They don't have to, and they don't live with any precedent. Meaning, if they paid you 4 times and then on the 5th time they just decided not to, that's their right. And that's they can do it legally. Now, is this a good term? I mean, no. In many cases, and this is why get yourself a lawyer is always good advice, even if it costs you a little bit of money. Many companies and big name producers in entertainment music, this term shows up a lot there, this idea of sole, absolute, unfettered discretion. It's a very common phrase. It's used to basically limit payments. What it's kind of being said here is that you will get more payment if they have a vested interest in working with you in the future. If they don't care about that, they're probably going to just dry up the payments, unless you happen to get somebody who's just a nice person who wants to do right. But you never do business that way. I mean, you should try and do business with good people, but you should not trust that good people is what's going to get you paid. That's a bad idea. But more successful writers, artists, creators who have worked with a lawyer will often get that language struck or amended from contracts. I know at least 2, one writer, one artist that I talked to, who had this exact phrase struck from their contract, and they do it because they want certainty around payments. Now, oftentimes what happens is people will strike that language and they'll get less. But I mean, this is an example. Contractually, yeah, not a lot that can be done here at all. That's language that pretty much guarantees that they don't have to pay you, and they won't. But morally, it's good to pay royalties, and that kind of gets into a different case. As I mentioned, Brett Booth was kind of chatting with Joshua Sart about this article that came out, and then Louis LaRosa, who's a very talented comic book artist, I think I think detailed and descriptive, and I haven't liked all the comics he's done, but I've liked his art in all the comics he's done. Does that make sense? As an artist, I think he's quite good. So he points out, basically he's responding to this, and he worked on Rick Remender's Scumbag for the Image comic launch. I think he helped design several of the creators and put some things together. And not only is he, basically, not only does it appear he didn't get money on the comic, and Scumbag, which is not selling anywhere close to where it started, but when it launched, it was somewhere in the 60 to 70,000 range in terms of sales, which for an Image comic is huge. It's a good thing. Rick Remender made a lot of money off that, but who apparently didn't? Louis LaRosa, who, if you're based on his story, is saying that he didn't get, he didn't get. In fact, not only did he not get anything, apparently, he shows screenshots that Rick Remender, his collaborator on that comic, blocked him on Twitter, which is, I mean, the frustrating part here. And not to go open up a whole other topic, Remender was semi-screwed over at Marvel. There were definitely some people who worked hard to kind of chase him out, and it was he got treated poorly, I would say, by some very manipulative people. So then turn around a few years later, and he's basically not paying and blocking his artist collaborator. What is he method acting for the title character Scumbag? That's That's a lousy thing. But that gets into this moral argument. I think, morally, it's everybody has different views on what that means. And when you find somebody who's good to you, who pays you, who pays their debts, who tries to take care of their team, then you stick with them. That's a great person. But for your own peace of mind and sanity and health, I mean, reading this kind of Louis LaRosa's account of this is heartbreaking. I mean, absolutely heartbreaking. And what do you even say about this? Scumbag is the word to use. It's disgusting. This is you can't trust on morals. You need to get good contracts. And I know I've done videos in the past stressing, so many writers and artists, they run out and they're trying to get an agent. That's their first priority. I'll say again, I remember Sean Murphy said when we had the conversation, get yourself a lawyer is priority number 1. An accountant is probably priority number 2. Agent is not priority 1 or 2. That may make you sound impressive at parties or whatever it happens to be, but seriously, lawyer. That's what's going to help you the most out about this stuff. And anyway, pretty lousy. This is lousy is the best way to say it. Well, thoughts go out to you, Louis LaRosa. I think you're an extremely talented individual. Sorry to see this is happening to you, especially from someone who kind of had this happen to him to some extent. So pay the bad things forward. What a what a crap time. That's the kind of stuff that bums me out about comics for sure. But anyway, there you go. What are companies obliged to pay you? Well, based on most contracts, nothing. And that's why you get a lawyer. Thanks for listening.